Alright, it's 3:20. Means in the Rockies, it's 4:20. So if you got one, spark up. Alright, today I am going to start another George Carlin audiobook. This is Brain Droppings. I had fun with the last one, and yeah, George Carlin is always good for some laughs, so let's get to it.
Hi, folks. This is George Carlin. I'm going to read my book to you. The book is called Brain Droppings. I will read it to you. You'll have to get someone else to understand it for you. For a long time, my stand-up material has drawn from three sources. The first is the English language. You know, words, phrases, sayings, and the ways we speak. The second source, as with most comedians, has been what I think of as the little world. Those things we all experience every day: driving, food, pets, relationships, and idle thoughts. The third area is what I call the big world: war, politics, race, death, the social issues. So without actually having measured, I would say this book reflects the balance very closely. Now, the first two areas in the book will speak for themselves, but concerning the big world,
I did not know it was just going to be a blank screen. For future parts, I'll try to see if I can find another version where there's actually something to look at. Feeling kind of foolish right now.
let me say a few things. I'm happy to tell you there's very little in this world that I believe in. Listening to the comedians who comment on political, social, and cultural issues, I notice that most of their material reflects kind of an underlying belief that somehow things were better once, and with just a little effort we could set them right again. They're looking for solutions and rooting for particular results, and I think that limits the tone and substance of what they say. They're talented and funny people, but they're really nothing more than cheerleaders attached to a specific wished-for outcome. I don't feel so confined. I frankly don't give a fuck how it all turns out in this country, or anywhere else for that matter. I think the human game was up a long time ago when the high priests and traders took over. And now we're just playing out the string. And that is, of course, precisely what I find so amusing. The slow circling of the drain by a once promising species, and the sappy, ever more desperate belief in this country that there is actually some sort of an American dream which has merely been misplaced. The decay and disintegration of this culture is astonishingly amusing if you're emotionally detached from it. And I've always viewed it from a safe distance, knowing I don't belong. Doesn't include me, it never has. No matter how you care to define it, I do not identify with the local group. Planet, species, race, nation, state, religion, party, union, club, association, neighborhood improvement committee. I have no interest in any of it. I love and treasure individuals as I meet them. I loathe and despise the groups they identify with and belong to. So if you hear something in this book that sounds like advocacy of a particular political point of view, please reject the notion. My interest in issues is merely to point out how badly we're doing, not to suggest a way we might do better. Don't confuse me with those who cling to hope. I enjoy describing how...
It's funny because not too long ago, yeah, you saw people on the left and the right arguing whose side George Carlin would have had. I had to kindly inform him. Wasn't on either one of y'all fucking sides. You can find a bit that will you can find one of his bits that will support your side on one thing. But there's also going to be another bit that shits on your side. Um, yeah.
Things are. I have no interest in how they ought to be, and I certainly have no interest in fixing them. I sincerely believe that if you think there's a solution, you're part of the problem. My motto, fuck hope. P.S. In case you're wondering, personally, I'm a joyful individual. I had a long, happy marriage and a close and loving family. My career has turned out better than I ever dreamed, and it continues to expand. I'm a personal optimist, but a skeptic about all else. What may sound to some like anger is really nothing more than sympathetic contempt. I view my species with a combination of wonder and pity, and I root for its destruction. And please don't confuse my point of view with cynicism. The real cynics are the ones who tell you everything's gonna be all right. And P.P.S., by the way, if by some chance you folks do manage to straighten things out and make everything better, I still don't wish to be included. Did you ever think about this? Did you ever think about how much information in the form of radio energy there is flying through the air all around us, all over the world, right now and all the time? AM, FM, UHF, VHF, shortwave, television, CB, walkie-talkie, cell phones, cordless phones, telephone satellites, microwave relays, faxes, pagers, taxi calls, police, sheriff, hospitals, fire departments, telemetry, navigation, radar, the military, government, financial, legal, medical, the media, etc., etc., etc. Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of separate little bits of electronic information flying all around the world through the air at all times. Think of that. Think of how busy the air is. And then realize this. 100 years ago, there was none. None. Silence. Here are 7 things I'm tired of. I'm getting tired of guys who smoke pipes. When are they going to outlaw this shit? Guy with a fucking pipe. It's an arrogant thing to place a burning barrier between you and the rest of the world. It's supposed to imply thoughtfulness or intelligence. It's not intelligent to stand around with a controlled fire sticking out of your mouth. I say, hey, Professor, you want something hot to suck on? Call me. I'll give you something to put in your mouth. I think these pipe smokers ought to just move to the next level and go ahead and suck a dick. Nothing wrong with sucking dicks. Men do it, women do it. Can't be all bad if everybody's doing it. I say drop the pipe and go to the dick. That's my advice. I'm here to help. I'm also getting sick of car alarms. Not the screeching and beeping. That doesn't bother me. It's just the idea of a car alarm that I find offensive. Especially the ones that talk to you. Move away. Move away. Oh, really? That's when I reach for my sharpest key, and I put a deep gouge in the paint job all the way around the car, 360 degrees. I might even make 2 trips around if I don't have a luncheon appointment that day. And then I walk away slowly, unconcerned about the screeching and beeping, because I know that no one takes car alarms seriously. Car alarms are a yuppie boomer conceit, and they're responsible for most of the carjacking that's going on. Car alarms and the club have made it harder for thieves to steal parked cars, and so instead they're stealing cars with people in them, and people are dying, and it's all because these selfish boomer degenerates can't stand to part with their...
Never thought of that. Did the invention of car alarms lead to a decrease in car theft and an increase in carjackings? I might have to look into that.
Personal property. Fuck boomers and fuck their pussified car alarms. I'm also sick of having to look at bearded guys who don't know how to trim the lower edges of their beards, where they extend back toward the neck. They trim too far up toward the chin. Leaves a glaring, fleshy strip where there ought to be hair. Guys, you need to let the beard extend far enough back under your chin so it reaches the point where your neck begins. Then, From the fold or angle that forms between your jaw and neck, you shave downward. If you don't have that fold, if you have a fat, fleshy pouch under your jaw with no definition, you shouldn't be trimming your beard at all. You should let it grow long and bushy so that it covers that goofy-looking pouch. And I've just about had it with all these geeky fucks who walk around listening to Walkmans. What are these jackoffs telling us anyway? They're too good to participate in daily life? They're sealing themselves off? Big fucking loss. And what is it they're listening to that's so compelling? I think a person has to be fairly uncomfortable with his own thoughts to have the need to block them out while simply walking around. I'd love to know how many of these obviously disturbed people become suicides. I've also grown weary reading about clouds in a book. Doesn't this piss you off? You're reading a nice story, and suddenly the writer has to stop and describe the clouds. Who cares? I'll bet you anything. I can write a decent novel with a good entertaining story and never once mention clouds. Really. Every book you read. If there's an outdoor scene, an open window, or even a door slightly ajar, the writer has to say, "As Bo and Velma walked along the shore, the clouds hung ponderously on the horizon like steel-gray, loosely formed gorilla turds." I'm not interested. Skip the clouds and get to the fucking. The only story I know of where clouds were important was Noah's Ark. Here's something else. I don't appreciate being put on hold and being forced to listen to someone else's radio. I don't even listen to my own radio. Why should I have to pay money to call some company and listen to theirs? And it's always the same shit, soft rock. That sucky, non-threatening, easy-listening pussy music. Soft rock is an oxymoron. Furthermore, it's not rock, and it's not even music. It's just soft. One more item. I'm tired of being unable to buy clothing that doesn't have writing and printing all over it. Insipid sayings, pseudo-wisdom, cute slogans, team logos, designer names, brand trademarks, small business ego trips. The marketing pigs and advertising swine have turned us all into walking billboards. You see some asshole walking by and he's got on a fruity Dodger hat and a Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt. Of course, you can't see the shirt if he's wearing his hot shit Chicago Bulls jacket, the one that only 50 million other loser jock sniffers own. And since this cretinous sports fan / consumer zombie is completely for sale to anyone, he rounds out his ensemble with FedEx sneakers, ValueJet socks, Wall Street Journal sweatpants, a Starbucks jockstrap, and a Microsoft condom with Bill Gates' head on the end of it. No one in this country owns his personal appearance anymore. America has become a nation of obedient consumers actively participating in their own degradation. I have some questions about food terms. For instance, breadsticks. If drumsticks are for playing drums, you'd think breadsticks would be for playing bread, wouldn't you? Would you like some breadsticks? No, thank you. I don't play bread. I play drums. Perhaps I'll have a drum roll. Shelled peanuts. Well, why don't shelled peanuts have shells? If you're clothed, you have clothes. So if you're shelled, you should have shells. You'd think they'd call peanuts without shells unshelled peanuts, wouldn't you? Same thing goes for pitted prunes. And boned chicken. I ask you, where are the bones? I can't find them. In my opinion, it ought to be called deboned chicken. And that brings me to semi-boneless ham. What's going on here? Does it only have half a bone? Or does semi-boneless ham mean that some complete object that is not entirely a bone has been removed from the ham? I don't know. Waffle iron. Why on earth would you want to iron a waffle? Wouldn't that just flatten out all the little square things? No. I believe waffles should be dry cleaned. Pancakes, of course, should always be ironed. I grew up in New York City, and I lived there till I was about 30. And at that time, I decided I'd had enough of life in a dynamic, sophisticated city, so I moved to Los Angeles. Actually, I moved there because of the time difference. I was behind in my work, and I wanted to pick up the extra 3 hours. Technically, for the last 30 years, I've been living in my own past. I knew I didn't want to move to the Midwest. I could never live in a place where the outstanding geographic feature is the horizon. The Midwest seems like a nice place to catch up on your sleep. Another reason I could never live in the Midwest is that it gets really cold there. You've heard of exposure and hypothermia? I could never be comfortable in a place where you can die simply by going out to the mailbox. Living in an area where an open window can cause death seems foolish to me. Of course, living in the South was never an option. The main problem being they have too much respect for authority. They're soldier sniffers and cop lovers. I don't respect that, and I could never live with it. There's also way too much religion in the South to be consistent with good mental health. Still, I love traveling down there, especially when I'm in the mood for a quick trip to the 13th century. I'm not someone who buys all that New South shit that you hear. I judge a place by the number of lynchings they've had overall. Atlanta even found it necessary to come up with an apologetic civic slogan. Atlanta, the city too busy to hate. I think they're trying to tell us something. There's also the communications problem. I have trouble understanding Southerners when they talk. Some of them sound like they're chewing on a dick. And I really have nothing against them individually. One by one they can be quite charming. But when you take them as a whole, there's some really dangerous genetic material floating around down there. So by default, I live in Los Angeles. And it's kind of a goofy place, I'm sure you've heard. They have an airport named after John Wayne. That ought to explain it. It has a charming kind of superstitious innocence. But if you really want to understand life in California, forget the grief clinics and yogaholics. Forget biofeedback, Feldenkrais, neurolinguistic programming, and the Alexander technique. Disregard spirit guides, centering groups, dream workshops, bioenergetics, pyramid energy, and primal therapy. Ignore centering, fasting, Rolfing, grounding, channeling, rebirthing, nurturing, self-parenting, and colon cleansing, and don't even think about polarity work, inversion swings, flower essences, guided synchronicity, harmonic brainwave synergy, and psychocalisthenics. You also need pay no attention to nude volleyball, spinach therapy, white wine hot tubs, jogging on hot coals, and the people who sing Christmas carols to zoo animals. Forget all that. The only thing you have to know about California is this. They have traffic school for chocoholics. Okay? California is the only place where you might hear someone say, Jason can't come to the phone, he's taking his wind lesson. The problem most New Yorkers have with Los Angeles is that it's fragmented and lacks a vital center. The people have no common experience. Instead, they exude a kind of a bemused detachment that renders them intensely uninteresting. The West Coast experience is soft and peripheral. New York is hard and concentrated. California is a small woman saying, fuck me. New York is a large man saying, fuck you. Still, I live in California, but I'm not laid back, and I'm certainly not mellow. I associate those qualities with the comatose. The solar system wasn't formed because matter was laid back. Life didn't arise from the oceans and humans descend from the trees because DNA was mellow. It happened because of something called energy. New York has energy. And all I can say is this. If you can't handle it, stay the fuck out. Living in New York is a character builder. You must know who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, and how to get there. No bullshit tolerated. New York people are tough and resilient. All the rest of you are varying degrees of soft. Most outsiders can't handle New York, so they wind up back in Big Loins, Arkansas, bad-mouthing the city for the rest of their lives. Actually, most of the people who run New York down have never been there. And if they ever went, we would destroy them in 9 minutes. People hate New York because that's where the action is, and they know it's passing them by. Most of the decisions that control people's lives are made in New York City, not in Washington, not on Pennsylvania Avenue, in New York City, Madison Avenue and Wall Street. People can't handle that. Pisses them off. Fuck them. And I'm really glad the Yankees humiliated the Braves twice now in the World Series. I'm glad the gritty, tough, third-world, streetwise New York culture triumphed over the soft, suburban, wholesome, white Christian, tacky mall culture of Atlanta. Overgrown small towns like Atlanta have no business in the major leagues in the first place. So, concerning L.A. versus New York, I now have lived half of my life in each of America's two most hated, feared, and envied cities. And you want to know something? There's no comparison. New York even has a better class of assholes. Even the lames in New York have a certain appealing, dangerous quality. As an example of how hopeless California is, when I first got there, long time back, 30 years, a policeman gave me a ticket for jaywalking. You have to understand the kind of people who live in California. They're willing to stand, passive and inert, on a curb when absolutely no traffic is coming, or maybe just a little traffic that you could easily dodge. They simply stand there obediently and wait for an electric light to give them permission to proceed. I couldn't believe this cop. I laughed at him. Ticket cost me about $20 in 1966. Since that time, I figure I've jaywalked an additional 1,000 times without being caught. Fuck that lame-ass cop. I've managed to prorate that ticket down to about 2 cents a jaywalk. One thing I do find appealing in California is the emphasis on driving. I like to drive. I'm skillful at it, and I do it aggressively. And I don't mean I scream at people or flash them the finger. I simply go about my passage, swiftly and silently, with a certain deliberate dark efficiency. In the land of the unassertive, the aggressive man is king. Of course, in Los Angeles, everything is based on driving, even the killings. In New York, most people don't have cars. So if you want to kill a guy, you have to take the subway to his house. And sometimes on the way, the train is delayed and you get impatient. So you have to kill somebody on the subway. That's why there are so many subway murders in New York. No one has a car. Basically, if more people in New York had cars, the subways would be a lot safer. I hope you can tell. The apple, and it's not the big apple, by the way. The real term is apple. The apple is still number one in my heart. I'm so chauvinistic, I even root for New York to raise more money than Los Angeles on the arthritis telethon. And you know something? We usually do. California, bordering always on the Pacific and sometimes on the ridiculous. So why do I live here? Because the sun goes down a block from my house.
All right. It's a good spot to take a break. I'm going to also have a playlist for this one like I did for his other audiobook. And, yeah, this one, it's off to a funny start. It's just weird looking into just a blank screen. But, let me know what you think so far. Again, I will have a playlist for this audiobook. And, let's see. Yeah, it should be maybe 3, 6, 7, 8. Probably have it done in nine parts. Alright. If you got any other Carlin you want me to check out, please do leave that in the comments. Other than that, y'all have a nice day. Thanks for watching. Stay blazing.